I'm Amy from Doodle Dog Designs. I'm going to make a punch needle pumpkin bag, and I have drawn this bag out, and I'll put a link in the description below to the pattern for it. It'll be a free pattern that you can get, and I'm going to trace it off onto my weaver's cloth. Got my pattern on a light box, and then I'm just going to trace the outline of the features here, and I'm going to try putting pieces of wool, like wool applique, on the inside here after I punch. And then I've drawn some dotted lines here to give me a guide for punching. So I'm not going to punch in my featured areas here. I'm just going to punch the pumpkin. And you could do this with white pumpkin or orange pumpkin or whatever color pumpkin you like. I'm going to use this Baldani floss. It's 0217. It's called the Yummy Pumpkin. I'm using my CTR punch needle. They don't make these anymore, but I like to use it, so that's what I'm going to use. I have the punching depth. It's pretty comparable to a 2 on the Smart Punch, or a 3 or 4 on the Ultra Punch. And the first thing I'm going to do is punch the outline all the way around. This is the same process for punching regardless of which needle you use. I like all of those, the CTR, the Smart Punch, and the Ultra Punch. I have punched all the way around, and then I've come back down one row from the top all the way to this first dotted line, and then I'm going to go back up following the dotted line. And I'm going to go back down here and then just keep going back down and up and down until I get this space filled in. Then I'll go on to the next little space. For this next section, I'm going to do the same, but when I get to the shapes, I will completely outline those one time, and then I will just keep going up and down. So I want to punch on the outside of the facial feature shapes because I'm going to cut my piece of wool to be that size. So I want it to be able to fit inside the punches. I have finished punching the pumpkin and I left these feature holes empty. Now I'm going to take my pattern and got some tissue paper, and I'm going to trace around the eyes and nose and mouth. We're just going to do the outer eyes, the bigger first, and then I will do the smaller ones. Bigger ones, I'm going to do all of them in black. I'm going to make sure that that fits. When I get done cutting, I need to flip the pieces over to make them fit because you punch from the back side. I'm going to take a scrap of cream now, and I'm going to, not going to worry about drawing it. I'm just going to cut one piece of cream that's a little bit smaller than this mouth. Okay, and then I'm going to do little circles with this for the eyes, and I've got this I'm going to do for the nose. I have got some embroidery flosses, one strand at 33.71. Use whatever floss looks good to you. I'm going to stitch this one on with this embroidery floss, and what I want to do is create a line all the way down the middle here. So I'm going to just do a back stitch. And then I'm going to stitch a few stitches that are perpendicular to that first line to give the appearance of little teeth. So I'm going back and forth and alternating the top and the bottom for my stitches. Now I'm going to use glue then to glue it in. You could stitch it so that you've got the needle and thread out if you want. And then these you could stitch together with needle and thread if you want, but I'm just going to glue them together. And then I'll glue them into the hole. I let the glue completely dry before moving on to this next step. I'm going to take this pattern again and I'm going to use some Wonder Under. I'm going to trace the outer pattern onto the Wonder Under. So I'm drawing on the papery side. I have the bumpy side down. I'm going to cut this out on the line that I traced. And I'm going to make this into a bag. And I could just completely line the bag, but I think this will be a little bit easier than lining the bag. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use this right here, this extra weaver's cloth, as a backing for this side here. So that way, if I were to poke something in, a stem or something in to my bag, I don't accidentally dislodge one of my floss loops. So I'm going to put the Wonder Under on the back side here like this, and then I'm going to fold this over and I'll press this down and then I'll trim the seams. So I'm going to take this to my iron and I will press the Wonder Under onto the back of my punched piece. I'm going to then peel this paper off, which leaves the sticky left here, and then I'm going to fold this over and I'm going to get it pushed way back so that I can see the loops here, and then I'm going to press this down with my iron. So that is stuck down now. So what I want to do now is take my scissors and I'm just going to trim back this layer. I'm going to leave this layer for now and I'm going to trim this layer of fabric. Now I'm going to take my pinking shears and I'm going to trim the other part of the fabric about 3/8 of an inch or so past the punching. Now I'm going to go back to the iron again and I'm going to press this to the back, all of the empty weaver's cloth. So I have the empty weaver's cloth all pressed to the back now, And I have used this pattern again, and I cut a piece of orange felted wool for the backing. You could use whatever color felted wool you want, or you could just use felt if you don't have felted wool. That would work also. This backing that I cut was actually a little bit too small. You really want to cut the backing to be a little bit larger than the pattern, and I did not do that this first time, so I had to cut another piece. I'm using a thread that matches the backing, and I'm going to stitch the backing onto the punch needle project. So I'm going to catch the folded over edge of the weaver's cloth and the edge of the felted wool. Try not to make a knot with my thread. See, I'm using my finger there on my left hand to keep the punched loops out of the way of my sewing here. And I'm going to do this all the way around, leaving the top open. I finished sewing the back on, so now I have a little bag. It's got some protection here on the front, so if I put stuff in the bag, it won't mess up my punching. And now I'm going to add a handle. I've got this rusty wire that is twisted. It came pre-twisted. I like using this wire. It's a little bit nicer of a look than just plain wire. Doesn't need a very big handle, maybe about like that big. So I will cut the wire with my wire cutters. And this is about 7 inches long. And I'm going to poke it from the outside to the inside. I'm going to poke through the back here, through the felted wool. The wire is not wanting to poke through the wool very well, so I've got this tool here out of my husband's toolbox. I'm going to just poke a hole through the wool with that, and then I will poke my wire from the outside to the inside again, and then I will fold it up. And then I will do another hole on the other side. I just want to make sure I get my hole away from my stitching. I don't want to accidentally cut my stitching. I don't want to poke myself, but that pokes through pretty easily using that tool. I thought it was called an awl. He called it a pick. So I'm going to add some crinkly ribbon to it as well on the handle. I have this orange and I have this tan. I think I'll try the orange. It has been coffee dyed and crinkled. I'm going to take the end here, tie the knot, cut that off. There. I've got some bittersweet berries that I'm going to tuck into my bag here. If you enjoyed this video, you might also like some of these other videos that I have made. Thanks for watching.